don't have to wait until you reach financial independence to start enjoying your life. You can do that much earlier and start living a life that you love and that's true to you. Welcome to Freedom Before FI. Using FIRE and life design techniques, we help you create freedom on your way to FI instead of waiting until you're retired to do the things that light you up. I'm your host Greg, a FIRE movement and life design enthusiast. If you're itching to get freedom now, then let's do this. Hello there and welcome back. So today we're continuing this little series about real life lessons learned from early retirees. We're mainly going to focus on the watch outs and pitfalls so we too can avoid them in the future. In case you missed it, you can catch part 1 in the previous episode where I shared lessons from Maggie at Inside Out Money. She retired with a hubby at 41, and Aman and Christina from Our Rich Journey, who both retired at 39. So 2 quick notes before we start. The first one is, in case you're not aware, I'm still on my own journey to FI, so these insights are actually from my own learning as well. The second one is, these stories are kind of like case studies. It's things I've heard or read about from the content that they've made publicly, and I've compiled them in a little neat package for you in these few episodes. Alright, so the next retirees that we'll be learning from is Richard and Jackie from early retirement Wanderlust. So Richard and Jackie both retired in the early 50s. They were both teachers in UK and decided to take the retirement leap to travel around the world. So one of the lessons they learned in retirement was that stress doesn't just go away altogether. It just takes a different form. When they left their careers, they were happy to not have to think about the day-to-day stresses of their full-time work, like dealing with angry parents, challenging students, school politics, and what have you. So when they retired, they realized that stress doesn't just disappear, it just changes. Because they decided to travel, there were other stresses like budgeting, do they have enough money, travel logistics, safety, etc., etc. They said their stress antennae just shifted its focus to different things. I suppose it didn't help that they were worriers anyway. It was funny how Richard said in his vlog, they worry about worrying. I suppose for us, what we can do is to try to anticipate what these stresses could potentially be for us in the future. Perhaps it's worrying if we have enough money to cover medical bills, or worried if we'll get bored. As an example, we can put plans in place to deploy against things like this in retirement, like beefing up our emergency funds, or testing new hobbies out ahead of retirement. Okay, so the second thing they learned was about their personal identity. You see, they were both teachers for a long time, and they both firmly identified themselves as teachers and didn't think they could be anyone else. However, what they did find was that they were able to take on multiple identities. For example, they were never really handy with construction, but they took on a house renovation project while they were retired. They also built a YouTube channel which they never thought they could ever do. Now they've built a thriving community around their channel and their blog. Their key takeaway is that your identity is more than just your job. There's a whole host of roles you can take on, and we just need to find them by trying different things out. So my thoughts around this is, you don't have to wait till retirement to figure out what other identities you can take on. And when I say identities, I'm talking about the things you love doing, your passions, and potentially even your purpose. Anyway, you can try different things out now outside of work or on the weekends. If you think evenings and weekends are not enough, one way you can carve out more time is to request for a long-term holiday, or you could do my favourite thing and take a mini retirement or a sabbatical that's a minimum of 3 months. Now, if you don't have an idea how to figure out what to do with your time, I actually have a workshop that helps people figure out what to do next. So this is handy for people trying to figure out their next career move, a business idea, or a side hustle. If that sounds like you, feel free to just drop me a line if interested. I'm currently doing some free sessions at the moment. Okay, so the next retiree is Joel Hart from the Camp FI community. So Joel done an awesome talk in last year's Camp FI meetup. The title of his talk was What I Got Wrong in My First Year of Early Retirement. So Joel was in a successful career for 20 years before retiring early. So one of the lessons he learned in his first year was around his social life. So there's two issues to this social life topic. So the first one is his social connections at work. Now he only realised after he quit that the social part of work was actually a big pull for him. He kind of took it for granted and he never really thought it was a thing. He enjoyed socialising with work colleagues and even getting to know and speaking with clients. The other issue was his social connections outside of work. So the catch-22 thing here is, he liked the idea of retiring early, but his friends are still in full-time work. So his friends are all working during the day when he wants to do fun things. Then when the evenings come around, he can't go out as much because that's his family time. Before retirement, he had all these plans to do awesome things. He said, doing things alone can be cool, but doing it with others is better. I suppose one of the ways we can try to counter this later on is to connect with like-minded FI people that are on a similar path. So that when you do retire, they would potentially be retired as well, and you can hang out with them during the day and then catch up with your full-time work friends on the weekend. Simples. Anyway, it's just on food for thought. Okay, so the second lesson was a real eye-opener and not what I expected at all. Bear in mind though, this may just be a specific lesson in his scenario. Just for some context, he has a wife and teenage kids. He said that his wife is a stay-at-home mum and she and the kids already have a routine going at home. So his lesson was, spending more time with his wife and kids was actually unproductive. Now I bet you weren't expecting that one. So what Joel found when he was retired is that him being at home and around the family was counterproductive because his kids were teenagers and they didn't want any more parental supervision. In a way, he said he was disturbing them because teenagers apparently don't want more parental involvement. His wife and kids already had this set up at home and him being there was kind of like throwing a spanner in the works, as we say back in UK. Now, of course, he never saw this coming at all. Before retiring, in his mind, having more time with the famo sounded amazing. But in reality for him, it wasn't. So anyway, if you think this might be a possibility for you in the future, it's just something to consider. Again, this might be a specific lesson from his personal perspective and situation. Okay, so those are the early retiree lessons for this episode. On the next one, we'll have more lessons learnt for you. I'll be sharing some insights from a retired couple from UK and another retired couple who moved to Bali. And by the way, if you're enjoying any of the content, please feel free to follow the show and give it a 5-star rating on your podcast player app. We'd appreciate that a lot. Alright, I'll catch you next week. Have an awesome day.